The power of austerity. An interesting point about Vena is that he received the throne by default when his father left. He had refused his father's good training, and he is one of the few rulers mentioned in the Bhagavatam who did not perform austerities before ascending the throne. He did not recognize a higher power. Rather, he usurped the Lord's position, calling himself the supreme personality of Godhead and calling the sages who insisted that Lord Vishnu be worshipped unchaste, as if they were giving up their husband to search after some paramour to worship. Even great demons mentioned in the Vedic literature, like Ravana and Kamsa, recognized a superior power and performed austerities to receive their power. So Vena is somewhat special in this regard. It is mentioned that from the austerities performed by a prospective king, he attains all 8 mystic opulences, which help him in ruling his kingdom. Why is it important for a prospective king to undergo austerities? Besides mystic powers, what does he gain from it? The answer: austerities are known as tapasya. These austerities can just as easily be performed for material benefit as for spiritual benefit. When they are performed to enhance one's spiritual life or the attainment of God consciousness, they are called tapodivyam. Austerity helps us focus on our goals, whatever they are. Materially speaking, the performance of austerity helps a person develop both hard and soft skills that can help them in their leadership. By hard and soft skills, I am referring to physical technique, hard, and relationship and communication issues, soft. The performance of tapodivyam enhances our natural strengths, allows us to become more empathetic, builds our enthusiasm, and increases our detachment. Austerity performed for a material goal brings lesser but similar results, although not usually detachment. Problems with a leader often have more to do with mental attachments and weakness within the leader than anything else. The performance of austerity can help a leader gain perspective and become less enamored with his own mind. It can also help a leader develop enough attachment that true integrity becomes possible. The performance of austerity is most essential for those wishing to develop self-control and to build their character. There are different types of austerities. Austerities of the mind, words, and actions. Just as one can be offensive to others in his thoughts, words, or actions, so one can facilitate others in his thoughts, words, and actions. Austerities of the mind include thinking assertively, positively, compassionately, and not allowing the mind to be captured by lust, but to focus it on loving and caring for others. The Bhagavad Gita 17.16 states, and satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's purport states, to make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. It should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. The best training for the mind is gravity in thought. One should not deviate from God consciousness and must always avoid sense gratification. To purify one's nature is to become God conscious. Satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. The more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification, and so there is no possibility of the mind's becoming satisfied. The best course is to divert the mind to the Vedic literature, which is full of satisfying stories, as in the Puranas and the Mahabharata. One can take advantage of this knowledge and thus become purified. The mind should be devoid of duplicity. and one should think of the welfare of all. Silence means that one is always thinking of self-realization. The person in God consciousness observes perfect silence in this sense. Control of the mind means detaching the mind from sense enjoyment. One should be straightforward in his dealings and thereby purify his existence. All these qualities together constitute austerity in mental activities. I don't know if anyone else wants to continue, but
Sure, I can read it a little bit. Austerity of speech means speaking truth in a palatable way. 1715. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating others, and also regularly reciting Vedic literature. From the purport, one should not speak in such a way as to agitate the mind of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his students, but such a teacher should not speak to those who are not his students if he or she will agitate their minds. This penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. The process of speaking in spiritual circles is to say something upheld by scripture. One should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. At the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear. By such discussion, we may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There is limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called penance of speech. Austerity of action refers to engaging in those activities that will enhance one's ability to control his senses and allow him to use them in such a way as to help his environment. Gita 17:14, austerity of the body consists of worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like father, mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. From the purport, one should offer or learn to offer respect to God or the demigods, the perfect qualified Brahmins, the spiritual teacher, and superiors like father, mother, or any other person who is conversant with Vedic knowledge. These should be given proper respect. One should practice cleansing oneself externally and internally, and he should learn to become simple in behavior. He should not do anything which is not sanctioned by scriptural injunctions. He should not indulge in sex outside of married life, for sex is sanctioned in the scripture only in marriage, not otherwise. This is called celibacy. There are penances and austerities as far as the body is concerned. So often we have seen how people have acquired a position or received an opportunity freely without having undergone any austerity to obtain it. Such people have often take their position for granted. When a person is born in a rich family, he does not have to endeavor for much, even in childhood. These children often become resentful of the opportunities they have been given. On the other hand, a child who has been born in a poor family, who has worked hard for everything he has, will appreciate the value of what he has earned. So we can stop there. So this section of the Bhagavad Gita, there's 3 verses, obviously, that we've just read, all of them, 14, 15, and 16. They're really, for me, they're some of my favorite verses because to me, they're very practical in terms of, if we're trying to control speech, mind, body, they give us very practical things to look at. And so I really enjoy rereading these. And I was just on a call recently with I think I've invited most people. There's this call on Wednesdays at 12 o'clock, Remembering Who We Are, where we just recently spoke about these verses, and that a lot of this is simple when we read it, but not easy to apply. But I just wanted to take and see if anyone had any comments, reflections, questions.
yeah, I really didn't know what an austerity was. Like, even I'll probably have to reread it because I find when I'm reading, it's harder for me to focus. But yeah, that was a new term for me.
So I can describe austerity as a really simple way to understand it, is the idea of sacrificing something for something better or higher. So it's like you give up something temporarily for something better in the future. So, I mean, a simple one that we can all relate to is, you study really hard for a degree eventually so you can get, like a stable job or work, right? That's that's a very easy practical example of understanding what an austerity is. Like, your student years or your younger years are meant for, specifically learning, where then, you set yourself up for a better future. But that idea is controlling or, self-control or withhold, sacrifice something temporarily for something better or higher in the future. That's a very easy way to think about austerity.
I think there is also what is for me important, austerities of the mind, words and actions. It is also written here. It is also came up to me. So we have to pay attention with our words and also with our actions. They are also combined with each other, I think, or connected.
Yeah, and even choosing even one aspect of each of these, I find it's a great, I've rotated through the different categories of body, mind, and speech, or actions, mind, and speech, and even just taking one and focusing on it for a little bit of time is a great way to have something that you're targeted looking at, because looking at them all at once simultaneously can become quite a lot. Ones that I've been looking at more recently, so I will say that the one that always jumped out at me of the three was, especially, and I still look at it, but this idea of austerity of speech, to be able to speak in a way that's honest, that pleases someone, that's beneficial for someone, that doesn't bother someone, and that's consistent with wisdom. That's how I understand 1715, or the austerity of the speech. And I always say to myself that it's easy to say something that's honest and truthful, that's going to benefit someone, but it's always hard to say it in a way that may not agitate somebody. And I always think of just giving honest feedback as a really easy example, to whether it be a colleague, a friend, a family member. But I'm always thinking about this kind of austerity of speech, of incorporating all these facets. And it's, we can speak something, but we don't always have control of how it lands with somebody else. And so that's one thing that I always try to keep in mind to myself. But this austerity of speech is, to have all the elements put together like this is really great. And when I've been fortunate that I've seen what it looks like when all of these things are brought together by, very thoughtful, mindful, self-controlled people. And it's really incredible the effect that it has on somebody else when we speak our words.
Thank you.
Any other reflections or thoughts?
Yeah, that's actually coming back. That is, for me, it is this importance to undergo austerities, like struck through, actually, also in the daily life, just to come back to the ground, actually, and clean up everything. I mean, from the and this is exactly those things, from material, minds, and speaking as well. So it's yeah. And another thing that would be that the problems with leader, that they often have more to do with mental attachments and weaknesses within themselves, and that's remembering this kind of tool of austerity, how it could be reached, and how we seldom often forget, or it's vice versa in our society. In recognition with becoming leader, that means becoming a lot of more of everything, the speech and mind and like material things.
Yeah, no.
So kind of bad start, yeah.
Yeah, Christina, I was just, you know, in reference to what you were just saying now, which is, I feel that it's something that's often not done by people who are in leadership position, where they try to withhold things. I mean, there are a lot of people that do a lot of hard work on their own, but I feel that this idea of austerity sometimes isn't so much embraced. And if there was one, quality that I see that it comes up, if people notice, it comes up in austerities of the mind and austerities of the body, is this idea of simplicity and embracing simplicity in our life. It's such a, again, as it's saying, like when we just think of the word like simplicity, I mean, it will mean something different to all of us, but this idea of just becoming, trying to be more simple, where it be like, simple-minded in our thoughts, simple-minded in like the desires in our heart, simple-minded in our, just our material acquisitions. I always, whenever I think of this word simplicity, whenever they, I think of, it's decluttering of all areas of our life. And one that we have to come back to often, because the world that we live in is completely the opposite of simplicity, completely the opposite of simplicity. And for me, like the fact that it's mentioned in two areas, both in, austerities of the body and the mind, really stresses the importance that I feel as leaders is sometimes overlooked. Just to, I mean, at the core, I think it's best to be simple at heart. But it becomes clouded when so many other things come in, such as, greed and money and, seeking like position and fame. These become like, it directly clouds and challenges this idea of simplicity. And to come back to it on a regular basis, I think this is where like the company we keep is so important, because a lot of times we're striving to be simple. And I think everyone who comes to this discussion every week, there's this, we're trying to move in that direction, but I think we always have to examine, because I think our simplicity is oftentimes impacted by the thoughts and the actions of others. And that can, really, like if we're not at a certain level of kind of internal strength, it's something that just, can shift very quickly. Or at least something that I've noticed being, living the type of life that I do, working in the medical world and being a doctor, but just coming back to that simplicity is it's really powerful and something that has to be done often. Any other like comments or thoughts on any of the specific points mentioned, or the qualities, anything that they're inspired by, or, feel like they want to practice more of?
I was just going to say, I really liked your reflection, Ricken, and it made sense to me. I feel like our world is the exact opposite of simple, or if you want to be simple, like there's so much pressure to be not simple, like
Totally.
everything is so complicated, and technology, and like, everybody always wants bigger and more. So, I really like the point about the company you keep, because if you have other people with those kind of that kind of mindset around you, that probably would make it a lot easier than, if you're around people who are like into materialism or trying to keep up or do more. So yeah, it's easy to get caught up for sure.
Yeah, it's not, there's not going to be many people that are talking about normalizing simplicity, right?
Mhm.
But if we can make it more normal, then and one way that I try to embrace simplicity in my life is, especially when you live in a city life is not simple. And so for me, just even breaking out of the city and going to, I mean, even just going away to my parents' place, which is in Waterloo, which I did this past weekend, it's a real opportunity to embrace simplicity, where as soon as you exit, the moment you exit like city life, there's an element of simplicity that's just so fulfilling. At least that's what in my experience. But again, that's just a simple way that I apply it. But it's not at all normalized in today's world. So I think, this bringing simplicity back is something that's necessary for all of us.
And I like that line, kind of flows with simplicity, but to purify one's nature is to become God conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's it. So as we're really simplifying, we're purifying our nature, both our physical nature and mental. And this is God consciousness, right? And it reminds me of Wayne Dyer, who I followed for many years. And, before you could kind of see some of the progression, maybe it was 15 years of Wayne Dyer. But then, kind of before he died, he sold his big house, he had his apartment. He gave almost everything away. But, it was like he was kind of getting it and trying to live the purpose of simplicity. But as we do it, that is the nature of who we are meant to be. And to get rid of that sense gratification when they speak about that too, because we often, and we've talked about that in the group before, how we hold on to the good, just like our opening, we want to hold on to that. But when we realize God consciousness, then there's no need for any of that, right? Because there's wholeness, there's purity just in who we are and in our being, that we don't need to have anything other than the ability to see our purity and our light and the love of what we are. I love that.
Yeah, thank you for just bringing it back to just the core essence of being what I always say is, we're spiritual beings having a material experience and not the other way around. And just being reminded that we should be reminding ourselves that on a daily basis, and if not, try even more than multiple times a day, because of how just remembering that, Tiffany, can just simplify our life so much more, right? And we need to be constantly I want to be around people like yourselves who are reminding me of that too, all the time, because it really can be such a powerful vehicle for us to reflect on what we're doing. Ed, how are you? It's good to have you. We're just speaking on this section of the power of austerity.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's really, and so Tiffany was just reflecting the point on purifying one's existence, and that being tied to being God conscious. And I was just talking about that, how important it is for us to just always keep that in mind, because she was tying it to the point that we mentioned before you joined, was this idea of being simple, and that the world we live in today is completely opposite of being simple. It's promoting complete opposite of simplicity, but how important that simplicity is, for our satisfaction, but also for, us as leaders as well.
Absolutely.
Did you have anything to share specifically on this section? It's a really amazing one.
Well, yeah, I mean, this point about simplicity is a very, very big topic. There's I'm not sure if I mentioned to this group before, I had an ex-colleague who used to be part of the UK military. And so he used to work for the army, and he would train the military intelligence. And so he introduced me to this concept of cognitive load. What we're seeing in modern society, and it even is also linked, according to Ayurveda, to what we see in the physical biology, is that when people live a life which is too complex, it's a cause of stress. Because what happens is that people having to think that people become subconsciously anxious because they're having to spin so many different plates. Like, what's going to happen about my finances? What's going to happen about my health? What's going to happen about my relationships? What's going to happen about this? And so because of that, the stress that it leads to, it actually causes anxiety. It also causes people to age a lot faster and to be less happy. Because, for example, in Ayurveda, there's a term called ojas. When people are always stressed out, anxious, and subconsciously so, they burn what they call, which is what they burn this substance called ojas, and the ojas is responsible for one's sense of immunity. It also has it also relates to the neurotransmitters. So we're aging a lot faster because we live a more stressful situation. So simplicity, it allows us actually to be more efficient because you've got a few key things to consider rather than 100 things to consider, many of which are superfluous to our real well-being. You know, I was thinking, just like an idea just came to my mind just as you guys were speaking, and that I was thinking one technique, and maybe we'll do this on a future session, is you could have a lifestyle audit. And you could bucket different areas of your life and see what's essential, what's a nice to have, and what's clogging up our life space, you know? And if you do that, we would be sometimes shocked to find that there are certain things that we keep in our life space which are not necessary, you know? And the more that we can streamline things, what I've seen in my own life is that my life space is in some ways reflective of my mind space. So when someone has a clogged up mind, it's reflected by a clogged up environment. And when someone's mind is quite light and clear, then you see that reflected in their external space because they have a few high quality things which are useful rather than being completely clogged up and having their space with so many obstacles, you know, like that. So this simple living is a big thing. I've really seen that the simple living is a big thing. And one of the reasons why I think people have so many difficulties is because we don't have the right relationships between ourselves and the elements in our life. So it's not a compatible relationship, you know? So there's a term in Sanskrit called swajatiya, which means like-minded. So for example, if people have healthy friendships and like-minded compatible partnerships, then there's less clogging because there's a real healthy connection between themselves and that situation. If people have a like-minded occupation, again, less clogged. There's a healthy relationship between that. So I've seen that the more that we can bring compatible elements into our life space, the more that we have that simple living and the more it frees us up to have higher thinking. But if my life space is really unhealthy, I'm going to spend all my mental capacity having to manage all of these things which would otherwise go wrong. And it doesn't give me the peace of mind to consider some of the higher concerns in life. So I just wanted to add that or throw that out there.
Yeah, thank you. Really powerful. Just what you were mentioning about doing that audit of taking different sectors of our life and trying to see what is essential and what is in fact clouding or, you know, clogging up that area of life. Because even sometimes removing one thing or adjusting one thing can have a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. And I always find that, you see, I feel that, and B.T. Swami often spoke about this, we're going to have to leave things behind anyway, ultimately, when we all pass away from this world. If we learn to let things go, because there'll be some things in our life space that are useful now, and there's some things in our life space that were useful in the past, but they're no longer useful. My wife has a good habit. She doesn't like to keep so many clothes. So she wants to have a few things that she actually really likes, and the stuff she's no longer using, she wants to just pass them on. Because then it keeps things light and it allows room for the new things to come in. And I think it's a philosophy as well. If we give away the things which are no longer useful for us, it creates space in our life for the new things to enter. But if we just keep trying to hold on to more and more things, even though that's no longer useful, it blocks the new area, the new gifts that the supreme, sometimes, you know, people believe in God and so on, which we definitely do. If we don't let those old things go, we don't create the room for God's gifts. Yeah. And I'm definitely guilty of hoarding as well. I'm definitely guilty of hoarding.
It's sometimes it's really hard to break attachment to certain things
Mhm.
that have been so either useful or have been with you for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But not all those things have to go. It's sometimes those things may be good, reminders and so on. But yeah,
But
absolutely.
I like this idea of letting go of things to allow, to kind of allow new things to come in, right? I think, I mean, I'll often forget that if we, we let certain things go, there will be, we all want new things to come in, but we sometimes will forget, or at least I will, that more things new can come in if we're willing to let, old things go. But that, that paradigm doesn't always hit us, that, the more we can let go of, we're actually allowing more new things, and hopefully better things to come in.
Absolutely. 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 Christina, you unmuted. Tiffany, was there anything either of you wanted to share?
I just
Do it.
I was trying to remember, we learned before, I think it was in the first book that we did, about the jewels, and that if you hold them in your hand, that was in the in our first
Book of Dharma.
Book of Dharma. That was such a wonderful representation, and I cannot, like, that image is in my head. Can you explain that again? About
So it was the idea of that when we, in life, there's two ways of approaching life, right? One is where we hold on to as many things as we can, and then the other, and these are called mudras. Mudras are basically like hand gestures that represent, certain things. And then the other way to approach life is with the hand open. And that when we approach life with the hand open, we actually allow ourselves to receive. But when we're in this position of holding, we can't actually, we can't receive anything. So basically the journey of life is moving from this to this.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Right? That's the journey of life, is actually moving from this holding mindset to the one of giving and receiving. So this open hand receives not only the receiving, but the giving as well.
Wonderful.
That's actually an analogy, Ed, that we learned from Simon Haas. He actually did that. And it blew us all away the first time he did it.
It's beautiful. So he's very profound, Simon. I have to say, he's a real thought leader, that person.
Yeah. I was actually thinking, Ed, that I'm going to check in with him to see if he potentially is in London around the time for the retreat.
Yes, please do. Please do.
So I definitely would like to, if it's at all possible, it'd be great to have him.
Yeah, let's do it.
Christina, you had something to share?
Oh, Tiffany, thank you so much for reminding that. I literally, I think after that session, I kept it, especially when it's in some spiritual events, that I started opening up hands, but I forgot where it's coming from. And so thank you, Ricky. That's really, now it's just flashback and reminding. And also to your reflection with actually how important to place it to the daily awareness. Yeah, so it's such a like casual things. We know them. We talked about it so many times. It's so easy to be just knocked out again and just and when you come to the topic, you just realize what are you missing actually so much, and probably why. So I for example, I really appreciate how we start every session, Rikin. So thank you a lot for the setup as well, remembering on the values and on the culture. I find it so actually what we should introduce in every I don't know, daily life, most likely entering the company and just reminding each other how we treat each other and how we come up. And the same like with this I don't know, with simplicity, and you also mention it as having the people around who are reminding you on that. So thank you so much. It's hit me today.
That's why I really always enjoy these discussions, is because it's an opportunity for me to remind myself and to have what you all share as a great way to, help, guide our days as well. It's been tremendous. Ed, I was just thinking that maybe you wanted to take us forward in the things that we had talked about in previous weeks, but hadn't gotten to.
Sure, let's do it. So I'm going to share my screen.
We have some really great exercise coming up.
Okay, so let's go back. So what I wanted to do is introduce you to, actually, I'll make the screen bigger so you can see it more easily. Here we go. It should be full screen within the next few seconds. Okay, there we are. Can everyone see my screen first of all? Okay, I wanted to introduce you to what I call the Leadership Empowerment Matrix. So what I did here, let me see if I can go back a slide, actually. Yeah, so what I did here is I took the 10 principles of leadership from the Leadership 2 book. So you can see them on the side. Loves people and is sensitive to their needs, help people feel happy and secure, create lasting value at all times, seeks to convey ultimate abiding truth, etc. We've got the 10 principles on the side. And at the top, what I did was I put together, this is a framework, it's an ancient framework. I also spoke to this, I call it the 3D model of leadership. And I spoke about this in the TED talk that I gave. So I want to give you the Sanskrit for this and then how we've derived it or given the English. So the Sanskrit is Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. So Sambandha, I've translated as direction. It's understanding the context. And especially in any situation, not only do we want to understand the situation, but we want to understand how everything in a situation relates to everything else, right? So this is all around strategy, awareness of a situation. That's the direction. It gives us direction. The next section, drive, or Sanskrit is Abhideya, which means to act, the action, the activity. So this is all about the power of execution, the ability to get things done, the energy to make things happen. And then the last section is called Prayojana. Prayojana means outcomes, or here we've used the synonym destination. So the vision of the good, the vision of the success, the end goal, the end state. So what I thought we could do as a very interesting exercise is start to use this framework practically. Actually, give me 1 second. Someone's just come to the door. I'll literally be 1 second. Okay, bear with me.
It's a great opportunity to reread the 10 principles. Does anyone want to go ahead and just read them for us? I was just saying, I think it's a great opportunity for us to reread the 10 principles, which we try to do, or I try to remind ourselves to do it at most of our sessions, because they're just always great to reflect on.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt actually. So yeah, whoever would like to just reread them.
We love people and sensitive to their needs, help people feel happy and secure, create lasting value at all times, seek to convey ultimate truth, lead from the inside out, knowing character is power, principle-centered, powerful visionaries, keep people engaged according to propensities, expert at delegation and empowerment, servant leaders, leaving a culture of enduring excellence.
Thank you for sharing those. And yeah, to Rickin's point, it's good even when we recall them, they'll enter more and more deeply into our minds, and we'll absorb those tendencies more and more. It often what we become is what we're exposed to. So we wanted to do an exercise on this. What I wanted to do is the following. What I've tried to do is to break down each of these 10 principles of empowered leadership and what they mean in at least 3 areas. So let's look at this example together. This first principle, that a leader loves people and is sensitive to their needs. What I've tried to look at is, what does that mean in terms of strategic, what does that mean in terms of strategy and planning? In other words, what's the knowledge component? What do I have to understand to do that properly. Then the next section, which is drive, it's what's the activity that I need to demonstrate to do that properly. And then the third one, destination, is if I'm doing this properly, if I have the proper understanding and the proper behavior, what should I see to be the outcomes? Okay, so looking at this first example, loving people and being sensitive to their needs. In terms of the knowledge element, it means I've got to understand the people that I'm dealing with properly. Okay, I've got to understand my team members. I've got to understand where they are in their life, what's going on with them, you know, where are their triggers, etc. So understanding the needs of my stakeholders, that's the knowledge component. The next is what are the behaviors? So to love people and be sensitive to their needs, I've got to demonstrate care. I've got to be sensitive to them, but in ways that they can perceive. We often talk to managers about recognition, you see? Now, recognition looks different to different people. If I don't know you, let's say that you're an introvert and you've been working on my team and you've done a great job. I may get you up on stage at a group event and get everyone to give you a round of applause. Because I don't know that you're an introvert, even though you may appreciate my good intention, you hated being on stage, you hated being in front of an audience, it made you feel embarrassed, it made you feel stressed out. That wasn't my intention, but because I didn't know you, I didn't know how to display appreciation and recognition in a way that's meaningful for you. You see? So this model is really, I love it because what we find in the ancient literatures is what we call complete models. So it's almost like you're cooking a meal and you've got all the key ingredients, so you know it's going to taste good. And you also know that other people who are cooking a meal, if they don't have all the ingredients, they may do their best, but because they missed out something essential, it may not work out. So with this, it's about the knowledge element, the activity element, and then the last stage, the destination element. This is how I know that it's working. If I'm appreciating you properly, what I should find is that you feel good, you feel inspired, you feel energized, you feel even more part of the team, you're more engaged and enthusiastic to do a better job. So what we see, if I love people in the right way, if I'm sensitive to their needs in a way that they can perceive as meaningful, then what I should see as an outcome, which is the last column, destination, what I should see as an outcome is that there's stronger relationships of trust, the team are growing, and there's more reciprocation. You see, so that last column is important because it's our marker to see that it's working. And if that last thing isn't there, then I know, okay, we're not getting the outcomes that we're meant to get. That means either my understanding is wrong, my sambandha's wrong, or it means that I'm not displaying that behavior in the right way. That means my abhidheya or my execution is wrong. You see? So this is why I find these ancient teachings so incredibly powerful, because they're complete. Now, what you also find in the modern world of self-help, often self-help people, they may emphasize one thing or another thing. It's rare that they've got the end-to-end understanding. So some people will emphasize the strategy. This is all the information you should know, like get to know your team, right? You know, personality types, etc. They may emphasize the knowledge. Other self-help people may emphasize the activity, you see? But it's rare that they go end to end. This is what you need to know. This is how you need to behave. And this is these are the clues to look for to see that the whole thing is working properly. Yeah. What I'm going to ask us to do as an exercise is I'm going to ask us to take this knowledge and apply it to our own situation. And I'll give you an example of that. So again, taking this first one, that we love people and we're sensitive to their needs. It says we have to understand the needs of their stakeholders. So we're going to do an exercise on this. So what I'm going to ask you to do in a moment is to write that down. Not what's said here. I want you to write out the answer for your group. In other words, where it says understands the needs of their stakeholders, you're going to write down what your stakeholders actually need. You're going to actually think, all right, how does this apply to my team? So doing a brainstorm, okay, I've got this member of the group and they've just had a child, so they need flexibility, they need understanding. I've got another member of my group, they're going through a health issue, so they need some flexibility around their health, Maybe they need to have flexibility about what time they come in, what time they leave the office, you know? So you're gonna take that concept and then think, how does that concept apply to my situation or my team or my project? Then you'll go to the second area. So where it says drive, so it says demonstrates care and sensitivity in ways that are perceived and meaningful to others. So I know what they need. Now it's like, how do I demonstrate that need in a way that's meaningful to them? So am I having those conversations with them? Am I asking them how they're feeling? In other words, how does that theory look in practice? Here, in this second point about demonstrating care, when do I do that? Is it in the one-to-ones? Is it in the team meetings? You see? So you take the theory and then you think, how does that theory apply in my own real life context? Okay, that's what we're going to do. So we can, and in that way, we can start to use this ancient teaching and again, make it more and more practical. I love taking wisdom, going from wisdom to impact, right? That's my thing. We take this ancient wisdom, how do I plug that into my life? And how do I know that it's actually making a difference? How do I know that I'm doing it properly? Okay, so that's the kind of direction we're going to go in. Now, before we start, I'm just going to actually look because I think I created 2 charts. Okay, yeah, so this is it. What I did actually here, going, you know, I'll take you back and I'll show you the connection. What I did here, sorry, let me just move. The thing moves a little bit faster than I expect it to. So, okay. So what I did actually here is with these 10 and with the different areas of concern, I thought of questions that you can ask yourself to really unpack this. So I'm going to show you that now. Okay, so let me, actually, no, I did it a different way. Okay, so forget that. I'm just actually showing you the questions right now. So let's go back to the original diagram. Okay, so you got each of these areas. Now, I actually don't want you to be limited to the first one, loves people and sensitive to their needs. What we're going to do is on the, we'll keep this screen up. You can choose which of these 3, I mean, there's 10 principles in total. You can choose which of these 3 you think are particularly important and then go through the areas of concern related to these 3. So if you think, for me, the most important thing right now of these 3 areas is to create lasting value at all times. Then you're looking at the knowledge element, which is a clear sense of what lasting benefit looks like in all areas. That's the knowledge element. Then the action element is the resources directed towards lasting value creation on a daily basis, investing in people, investing in initiatives. That's the action element. And the last element is the outcome element. So if I'm doing this properly, what do I expect to see as an outcome? I should see long-term systems that are built with lasting funding considerations, right? So if I'm creating lasting value, I should see more and more outcomes which are long-term and which have their own funding built in so that they can keep going. Does that make some sense? Is everything clear, first of all, in terms of what I've written out? Yes or no? Yeah? Okay. So what I will do is I'll leave this on the screen. I'm going to ask you to take a few minutes, let's say 5 minutes, and just write down which of these are you considering right now? So is it number 1, number 2, or number 3? So is it loving people? Is it helping people feel happy and secure? Or is it creating lasting value? So which of these are most important to you right now? Choose one, and then just fill out what's the knowledge element, what's the action element. Okay, so I'll give you 5 minutes to do that. Then we're going to go to another set of leadership principles, and you're going to also do the same thing there. Okay, so 5 minutes. You can have your camera on, you can switch it off, but choose one element, and then you're going to apply the first 2 columns to your own company. So if I want to be better at loving people and being sensitive to their needs, let me write out, what are the needs of my stakeholders, right? I know my team, what do they need? Write that down. Then I'll look at the next area. How do I demonstrate that care and sensitivity in ways which are meaningful to my team? Let's say I've got a young team. To show care and sensitivity, they may need more fun activities. So maybe I take them out more. Maybe we do more social events. For a different team, maybe they're older. Maybe demonstrating care and sensitivity will look different. Maybe for them, they need a different way of showing it. Okay, so we'll give you 5 minutes to just write out your notes, applying this understanding to your situation. 5 minutes and then we'll reconvene. Value. And you've written out the knowledge element and also how that would be demonstrated practically according to the specifics of your area of responsibility, your situation. What we're going to do is we're going to put you into a breakout group for about 10 minutes. Ricken, if you could set up that breakout group, just the two of you, and we want you to share what's the knowledge element and also what's the practical demonstration of that, and to get some feedback from each other. So when you hear from each other, when you hear about the knowledge element, if you think there's some additional things that you need to know in this area, feel free to add and share that suggestion. When you hear about how that will be practically executed, again, there may be other ideas that come to your mind that you want to share, okay? So we're going to put you into breakout groups for about 10 minutes or just over 10 minutes to have that discussion and to bounce ideas off each other to cement it. We like to do these breakout group discussions because we're really concerned with quality and transformation. Otherwise, what can happen, to Ricken's point, which is absolutely right, is we can rush through these things, but it doesn't go deep, and we don't take it and apply it. We don't see the full benefit. Okay, so Ricken, if you could start the breakout for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we'll just come back and hear any conversation points from your discussion, and then we'll close the session for today.
You should see it.
Okay, I'm gonna pause the recording. Did you find the?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I let Christina take the lead because I did mine more theoretically because I'm just working with myself right now. So I really loved what she said. So I don't know, Christina, if you want to share your example. I thought it was really great.
I mean, just I took the introduction of feel happy and secure as the second point, and was going out of my project management team, which is for a short project, totally different backgrounds, totally different personalities, and they are like for a short term, very intensive time, like inside. And like out of this already naturally, I don't know, like unsecure environment, emotionally insecure, because you just do not know anybody and have to figure out how to work and what skills to use and what personalities are coming up. And like feeling happy and secure, just like I think what can be activities like at first in environment, also that you don't know people and very short, that just how to build the social relationships to start at least a little bit. So, and And the second point, which was due to this very intensive period, like work-wise and also mentally, because you are just with a group of strangers actually, and you have to figure out in the short term, that creating this self-care or health-care, that means that you are forcing the breaks for the team, and maybe then was out of the conversation idea that combining those, all these breaks which are taking or for I don't know, just to eat, to drink, yeah, to make sure that they go out of the room and take the time to relax, and also to use it somehow to encourage to use it also on building these relationships. And due to Alicia started with love and the needs, she mentioned a couple, actually to starting figure it out what is important for them, and that could be, for example, social exchange topics, so you can use in the breaks to create conversations. And yeah, so that was a simple, short approach on it.
Wonderful, wonderful. And yeah, it really it really speaks to how we can apply some of this insight, this wisdom, for impact. Yes, thank you very much for sharing that. What we're going to do is just after 1:30, so I know we're going to finish on time, which is something we don't often do, but we'll finish on time today, and then we'll carry on. And what do you think is best, Rikin? Do you think I should share these slides so people can even do some of this preparation before the next session, or should we do it in the session? Maybe we do it in the session with people present, so we can go through some of these other areas of the 10 principles, and they can also write out what's important for them. Do you have a particular view or perspective on that, Rikin?
I was just thinking that if we shared the images, like I don't mind sharing the images of the slides, but I think what would be nice for those, because a good chunk of people couldn't join today, is that if you just had a voice note that I would share with the group about what to do for the next session. I think that's probably a good way, because I think having the more time will be nice, because then people will come like having discussed discuss their meditations.
Perfect. Okay, let's do it. I'll do that. So I'll send the voice note and also the screenshots, and then we'll send all 10 of these areas out. So then people can choose a few and write down what's the knowledge element, what's the action element. And then when we come into next week's session, we can go straight into discussing what are we learning, which areas were important to us, why were they important, etc. Excellent.